Sneakers and Cleats,
double bass.
Welcome back to Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast. It is Thursday, I think, May 16th. We are jam-packed with...
Sounds right.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know. Today's blend together now. We are jam-packed with Texans and Cowboys schedule releases, games being played on Netflix and on Christmas, and who else knows when. Chuck McKinnon, Zach Hedrick along for the ride. Guys, how are you today?
Great. We're doing great.
Excellent.
Is that your Don impression?
That was
sitting in Don's seat. You gotta take up the mantle, I guess.
Yes.
I was just thinking we don't really have this combination very often of the three of us. It's usually like if you're here, then usually maybe I'm not here, and like we don't have this combination often. Or it's like you and I, or Chuck and I, or Don and I, but this one's rare. So everyone's in for a treat. So anyway, we're going to talk a lot about Cowboys, Texans schedules. We'll talk about the Netflix games, the Christmas games, kind of break down what we think is going to be the biggest, our main takeaways from Cowboys schedule, all that stuff. But as we restart kind of the countdown, we didn't get through 1 or 215 in the number game. So now that we are episode 101, we start with number 1. Guys, who do you think of when you think of number 1?
Warren Moon.
Ozzie Smith.
Ozzie Smith's good. I always think of Cam Newton. I also hate when players wear number 1. It's just a thing. Like in college, we had the number 1 jersey was framed on the wall, so no one could wear one, and it was like because no one person puts themselves above the team. So I always hate when people wear 1, but I think of Cam Newton when I think of 1 in that way. There's some good ones though. Tracy McGrady, also a good number 1. Penny Hardaway, Derrick Rose, Chris Bosh, Devin Booker.
Man, there's Warren Moon, and then that's it. Why are we even having this discussion? Warren Moon, man.
I don't know. Cam Newton's an MVP. He fell off
nobody, and I mean nobody in the history of anywhere threw a better ball or prettier ball than Warren Moon.
That's a hot take.
End of story. End of story.
People will say that Dan Marino threw the best ball.
I stand by my previous statement. Dan Marino's was nice, but Warren Moon, go watch the film.
Go watch the film. Cue it up.
It really is film back then.
Exactly. Literally tape to tape.
Anytime, anywhere, best ball ever.
All right. Well, hot take from Chuck today. Also, Pee Wee Reese is another number 1. I think he was 40 to 58 with the Dodgers. He played 1 year in Los Angeles. But Ozzie Smith's a really good one too.
The Wizard.
Also happening in 2001, the Ravens beat the Giants 34-7. I'm really depressed that game wasn't a shutout because it should have been. Is that the best defense of all time? That Ravens defense?
Up there.
Yeah, the 84 Bears too. Those,
yeah,
some really good defenses come to mind.
85 Bears, 2000 Ravens, 13 Seahawks, maybe 15 Broncos. Like those are all pretty up there on terms of how good those guys are. I also put it on here just because I knew we were going to have a Sooner. OU and defeated FSU 13-2.
Yeah,
in the
boomer.
2001.
Quentin Griffin scampering up the middle for the only touchdown of the game.
I did not remember that, and I actually had to double check that the score was 13-2.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a record.
So the Florida State quarterback won the Heisman, and Torrance Marshall, who is from Florida, prep school and all that kind of stuff, out there at the coin toss, he's there talking smack to the Florida State quarterback. We're here to get my boy's Heisman back, talking about Josh Heupel, and the Florida State quarterback, it wasn't his, and it's just like we'll find out. And so they did.
I had to do like 3 or 4 checking that it was like actually 13-2. I didn't realize that a game actually ended 13-2. So it's something. That was some national championship game.
I enjoyed it.
I'm sure you did. Tom Brady also made his first NFL start on September 30th in 2001, and now 23 years later he's getting roasted by Nikki Glaser.
The Brady fatigue continues.
Yeah, exactly. I am so sick of talking about him. Did you guys see, as a quick aside, that he was asked, like, would you do it again, the roast? And he was like, no, it affected my kids and all that stuff. It's like, what did you expect?
The dude was the executive producer of the thing.
Yeah, like, what did you expect? Of course, they're going to talk crap on your wife and, like, your family and you, and, like, you're being roasted.
I look at this Tom Brady metamorphosis as kind of like Miley Cyrus when she went from Hannah Montana to what she is now. Like they're trying to make Tom Brady the bad boy somehow, some way, and I don't know. It just seems infinitely inauthentic.
I agree with you. Chuck. The Tom Brady of it all is just kind of annoying now. Basketball, the Lakers defeated the 76ers 4-1. That was the only game that they lost in that entire postseason was game 1 to the Sixers, and then they ended up rattling off 4 straight. I didn't realize that they had gone 16-1 in the postseason, but wasn't that the Iverson step over game?
It might have been.
I think
over Ty Lue.
Yeah, over Ty Lue. That was a overtime win by the Sixers.
But that was right in the middle of Shaq and Kobe, right?
Right.
That
was the second of the three-peat.
Yeah.
So, and then baseball. Diamondbacks defeated the Yankees 4-3. The Diamondbacks were in their 4th year as a franchise, becoming the youngest franchise to ever win a World Series, like the earliest franchise to do it.
That was probably the only time like people who were non-Yankee fans were actually Yankee fans because of what happened earlier that year, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I will always pull against the Yankees, so I thought it was cool, but that Phoenix sold its soul to get baseball. That team lost money that year, but they had Schilling and the unit on the mound, and it was glorious to watch the Yankees lose. And then Luis Gonzalez, who had the game-winning hit in that series, married a New Braunfels girl.
Oh, really?
So his ties to the area, yeah.
Why do you know these things? Like, how do you know these things? Like these random facts.
Just saw him at the last World Series too. I mean, but some of these guys, if you fortunate enough to be around locker rooms for a long time, and since he played in the state of Texas, you get to know some of these guys at least a little bit.
That's fair
in that regard.
Fair enough. And then also in 2001, Tiger Woods won the Masters. He became the first golfer in history, still the only golfer in history, I believe, to hold all 4 major titles at the same time. The Tiger Slam. I will always, for at least the next 7 episodes, get in a Tiger stat because I love him. Anyway, let's get to the Cowboys schedule. So, got it in front of us. Luis, would you mind popping that up for us? Cowboys schedule is as follows. It starts out pretty rough. I mean, you go to the Browns for Tom Brady's first announcing game, if we want to get more Tom Brady in here. You go to the Browns, and then I think they have like 7 of their first 10 games are against playoff teams from the year before or teams with winning records from the year before. So it's going to be pretty difficult to start off.
I agree 100%. I'm just glad that most of these games early on will be on Fox. Shameless plug.
Plug.
I think statistically they're tied for 12th. The Cowboys are in terms of playing teams this year with a winning percentage, a high winning percentage. But their schedule, to me, at least on the surface, I'm with you. It looks like it's a lot harder than a lot of other teams. Just the way it stacks up, and then. Even their bye when it comes, they come back and it's 2 really long road trips, 1 to San Francisco, a night game. It just looks like there are a lot of forces at nature, and they're not the only team, but this is a very wonky schedule in a lot of ways for a lot of teams this year. And it'll be interesting to see how the Cowboys adapt to that. I have to think that because they're on prime time a lot and have been over the last half decade, and McCarthy knows how to navigate this kind of a schedule as good as anybody or as well as anybody. I got to think they at least have an advantage in some regards against some of the other teams in the league that maybe haven't experienced this kind of wonkiness.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. To your point of McCarthy, that was something he touched on last year. It's like, hey, look, we're the Cowboys. We play late, so and that might be the one positive of bringing McCarthy back this year is he can, be the manager of, okay, here's how we'll lay everything out logistically to make sure that everybody's getting the days off that they need and getting the rest that they need so they can navigate this the right way. I agree. It's a tough start. The weeks 5 to 11, that's where I was really kind of looking at. It seems like that's going to be another tough stretch too. And then of course it's the 3 games in 12 days around the Thanksgiving time frame that they always have.
Yeah.
That's stock though.
I feel like whenever you look at a Cowboys schedule, you look for a couple of things. When's the bye week? What teams are you playing before and after Thanksgiving? And where are the Eagles games? And so you look and see the Eagles game it's week 17. That's the second Eagles game going to be at Philadelphia. That could very well be for an NFC East title because you have them so late. I know, I'm pretty sure this year their second Eagles game was like early December. So it was kind of already decided like what they needed to do the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, they play within like a month.
Yeah, they played like twice within a month. And now it's kind of like you're spacing out these Eagles games a little bit. You have 8 weeks in between, 7 weeks in between them. And so that second game, they're going to know very well exactly where they are by week 17. So I could see that one coming down to to the NFC East.
Yeah, and past 2 seasons, both those teams splitting the series, home and home. So I would no surprise if that, pans out again.
Yeah, I mean, and the Cowboys have done well with McCarthy inside the division, no matter who they play. I'm sorry, Bob.
I'm sorry to jump on top of you, but Washington and New York are horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, they get 4 gimmies.
Well, they were last year.
They're going to be bad again.
We don't know how bad they're going to be.
They're going to be bad. They're going to be bad.
You never know.
They got 4. They basically have 5 buys.
I think the Commanders will be much better.
The Cowboys have 5 buys.
The Cowboys do not have 5 buys.
I mean, Bob makes an interesting point. I mean, those games are always fistfights because they're division games, and
right.
Every coach in the league looks at the schedule and goes, okay, the games that they put the most importance on are obviously inside the division because that's where you have a really good chance of setting yourself up to make the playoffs, right? For a bunch of different reasons, whether you win the division or whether you have such a good enough record that you can sneak in as a wild card team. So.
And also those Commanders games this year have even more juice because so many players that were on the Cowboys team last year are on the Commanders now. Their head coach, the Commanders head coach, is Dan Quinn, our former defensive coordinator. So like those games, even though they are potential gimmies, like there's no gimmies in the NFL. They might be an easier game, like just logistically. It's not going to be that easy of a game because you have somebody who knows you inside and out.
Right. And again, it's, we're spitballing the schedule. We have no idea. Some of these teams are going to take a leap up and some of these teams are going to take a leap back. And some of this looking at the schedule is when you play a team.
Yeah.
If you play the 49ers and half the team is banged up because of what happened the week before, then obviously you catch a little bit of a break when you're playing them. And then conversely, it's when are you playing teams? When are you healthy? When are you not healthy? And that's why, you look at this schedule for the Cowboys, it looks like it's, if you can just survive the first 7, 8, 9 weeks and then really make hay in the back end, you might be able to set yourself up.
Yep.
Yeah, that the 49er game that's coming off the bye is one that I think we all have circled because the 49ers are just a thorn in the Cowboys side and they have been for years now.
Yep.
And so to get that game, 1 on NBC, so on a Sunday night, but 2, get it off a bye is just really beneficial, I think, for the Cowboys at least.
But look who you're playing before that bye too, the Detroit Lions, Dan Campbell, where they're going to bite your kneecaps off. Right. And they're definitely going to want to come in and, line up their tackle in the right spot or whatever. And, do all sorts of fun stuff after last season.
They're definitely going to try and make sure that everyone's accounted for.
Well, I think they're just the Lions. I think they'll just come in and look to knock your block off,
Yeah, I mean, their schedule at the beginning of the season is so tough. And then you end like that stretch with the Texans on November 18th, Monday Night Football. It's like, geez, it's just playoff team after playoff team after playoff team. So it makes it even more difficult. But what do you guys think of the week 7 bye? This is the second year in a row now they've had the bye in week 7. I felt like at the end of last year, they were starting to get a little banged up and nicked up because you have that bye so early. So do you think that's not beneficial for them in this case?
Well, I don't know because, in between there's some places in here where when they have games bunched up, there's some days to recoup. I'm trying to think of where it is.
I mean, from Thanksgiving to you almost get kind of that other bye week
right
between the Thanksgiving game and then December 9th before you host the Bengals again. So
right. That's right. That's exactly where it is. Good eye, Zach. Yep. So there are some spots where they can kind of get mini buys, but again, you look at anybody's schedule and everybody's dealing with the same thing. I mean, when you talk about a 17-game schedule, and then of course the emphasis this year has to be for the Cowboys, right? Because the knock last year was they couldn't beat good teams. They just got fat on the bad teams
at home.
you know that that's going to be a point of emphasis this year, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
They're
that
going to have
just
to win
will
on the
be
road.
based on what they didn't do last year.
And to that point, you see the teams that they have on the road. It's not like that's not where the gauntlet lies. I mean, they have the Steelers on the road. Don't know how the Steelers are going to be this year with Russ and their quarterback situation. They're always good, but you don't know how good they're going to be. The Browns, I don't know if Deshaun Watson knows how to play football still, but if he does, maybe they'll be potentially good. I mean, their defense at home is always good, as it was last year.
Yep.
The other games you have on the road, though, the Niners, the Falcons aren't a powerhouse. I mean, at least they weren't last year, haven't been the last couple of years. The Commanders, the Panthers, and then you have the Eagles. So they're going to have to win on the road, and they're going to have to probably win a couple of games against the AFC North to get where they want to go this year. What were you were saying something before we got on about the travel for that 49er game and the East-West. Do you think that's a hindrance to them as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really tough. Like, if you look at the teams in the NFC North, Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago, Minneapolis, I mean, those are hop, skip, and a jump plane rides for road games. I mean, when you're the Cowboys and, at least you're centrally located, you don't have to go, far east to far west or vice versa. I mean, it's tough when you have to go to San Francisco and then you got to go the other way to Atlanta the following week. I just think over time, this is part of, why rest is so valued in today's NFL. And, when they're resting, they're not practicing. But, McCarthy talked about that a lot last year, that sometimes you have to just I got to give these guys a day off, because this extra game and now this quirky schedule has really messed with players' ability to rest and recover.
I was also looking at the lines for the Cowboys. They have all the lines up for all the games. They're only underdogs in 2 games. I think it was week 1 where they were like 1-point dogs. And then week 17, they're going to be 2-point dogs. We've talked a lot about how poor the offseason has been for the Cowboys relative to some other teams. What do you think that says about what the odds makers and what people still think of the Cowboys and how well they've performed in the regular season, because they're only underdogs in 2 games on their entire schedule?
Well, I think that it's just going off that track record. I mean, 3 12-5 seasons, and the same guy is back, in charge with McCarthy. So, with him at the controls, it's kind of like, okay, they will at least be in the neighborhood. I think that's what that says. You mentioned them being underdogs to the Browns. I think Myles Garrett might, he could feast against Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe. We'll see what that happens.
Yeah, right.
It's going to be baptism by fire for those young guys up front. But maybe that's a good thing. It's like, okay, that's what it's like week in and week out. So, maybe that's a good way to start it off for those young guys up front.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's odd that the odds makers have them, like you say, they have them, because, I've been the eternal optimist with these guys for at least the last half decade. I could see things where you go, I think this is going to be a pretty decent team, or maybe, because of some other variables, they're going to have at least a chance to have a decent squad. This year, there just feels like there's more moving parts and it's harder to predict. And just like you said, Zach, I mean, you start with the guys up front. I mean, there's a chance you have 2 rookies starting, one on the left side, one who's, a pretty high round pick, 3rd round pick in Beebe, but he's playing out of position at the pro level. I mean, and then you add to that, McCarthy's already said that the offensive line position gets cheated more than any other spot on the field this time of year, because, you can't have contact. So how do you prepare for these amazing defensive lines? And now you're going to have 2 of those guys possibly start. Then all the other stuff, guys coming back from injury, Dak making 21% of your salary cap with lesser paid talent around him. Maybe not lesser talent, because we don't know yet, but lesser paid talent for sure. I don't know, man. That just, to me, feels like there's a lot of moving parts this time.
100%. Last thing on the Cowboys, what'd you guys think of the release video with the FaceTiming of random fans of the other teams and Jerry and all the guys just sitting there?
I kind of liked it. I mean, I thought it was one of the better ones. There were some
quirky.
other one. Yeah, but it's kind of like, I like the whole surprise of it, where it's just like, whoa, like look at all these Hall of Famers, And I really thought, I'm gonna draw a blank on it now, but there was one. Oh, it was Juszczyk, I think. She's just like, y'all want me to make you a jacket?
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good.
I thought a couple of them were good. I just thought it was so Cowboys to just like have Jerry Jones sitting there with Dak and Michael Irvin just.
Yeah.
I liked that one a little bit better than the Texans release video. The ASMR like smashing thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't into it. Like
No.
I kind of enjoy those videos.
Well,
on
somebody
TikTok
else
or
did it
Reels. Yeah,
too.
the Chiefs did.
Yeah.
The Chiefs also did it.
Speaking of the Texans, how hard was it to navigate their schedule on their website? And then I saw you
Very
pointed out a
difficult.
version of it. It's like, I still don't know what this is.
It's so bad.
Yeah, there you go. I just need names and teams and times, and that's
Well, the Cowboys had like a printable schedule, a downloadable schedule. You could go through everything on their website, and then I literally had to go through like 4 or 5 different sites just to find them.
that's exactly what
I
I
was
had
like,
to do.
what is going on here? But anyway, talking about the Texans schedule, you kind of get the opposite when it comes to the bye week. Week 14 bye is tough, extremely tough, especially for a young team with a young head coach.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. It's like play a whole entire season, and then okay,
Right.
now you get your break. I mean, but that's maybe because they are a young team, right? So it's just kind of like, all right, let these horses run, and we'll see how they hold up. So
Did you guys see the pre-schedule release press conference with the head coach,
D'Amico, yeah.
D'Amico Ryans?
Did not see it.
Okay, so somebody asked him about the schedule release, and he just basically went off on a tirade like, we don't care. We'll line up. We'll do anything we want. The only thing I care about is when is our bye. And I thought, this is why he's pissed off now. He knew that their bye was going to be on week 14. No, the league did them no favors with that. I mean, can you imagine? You need some time off, and then you schedule these guys to play Christmas Day on a Wednesday. Man, it gets really, really tough. And we knew it was going to be tougher for the Texans, right? You knew you were going to play. Last year, they played a loser schedule and took advantage of it. This year, they're playing a winner schedule, and man, they're going to have a lot to overcome. Statistically speaking, they have the 4th hardest schedule in the NFL this year.
And not to mention those 2 games. That Wednesday game is against the Ravens, and their game right before that, I believe they play. Is it a Saturday that they play the Chiefs? They played the Chiefs on a Saturday. Before that, it's just like, okay, here's your 2 hardest games on your schedule.
Right.
We're going to put you on 2 short weeks. Have fun.
And before the Kansas City game, you play Miami,
Yeah.
and then you got another divisional game on the other side of that with the Colts.
Like you give them a week 14 bye, and then you're like, all right, Miami, Kansas City, Ravens, Titans. Have fun.
Yeah.
What the hell is that? Like the
Yeah.
NFL screwed the Texans.
Yeah, somebody's not happy with them at NFL headquarters.
Absolutely not. I mean, and to your point about the winner's schedule, like last year they played the last place schedule. They took advantage of it, 10-7. They went from worst to first. It's a completely different animal now that they have this kind of scheduling formula that they do, where you're playing the best team or the worst team in a certain division, depending on where you finished in your division. It's very, very different than it was going to be last year, than it was last year. So I just don't know how they're going to adjust to having that kind of first place schedule, 4th hardest schedule in the league. It's going to be difficult for them to replicate what they did last year.
I agree, but I think they've been pretty strategic with what they've done. I think one of the impressive things is like, even just take this last draft, right? They didn't necessarily have to draft because they were short something here or short something there. They were able to draft basically for depth. So now you have young players, you would think, that have less wear and tear on them, that have a chance to back up some of your big boys. So I think they've done it as well as you can. And it's hard, it's hard for teams like Dallas, anybody, to get 13 wins a year based on how the league has set this up. The league is set up for parity every year.
Yeah.
The games are close every year for a reason. And there's a reason why, other than Kansas City, you've got teams that,
Right.
it's hard to get to the top every single year.
What do they have? 5 primetime games? 6 standalone games, something like that?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like last year. A lot of noon games.
Yeah. A lot of noon games, but you also have, I believe there's 3 back-to-back, week 9, 10, 11 is Prime Video, then NBC, then ESPN.
Yep.
And then you have Chiefs, I believe, is a primetime game or a standalone game. And then obviously on Netflix on Christmas is going to be a standalone game as well. But speaking more about the games on Christmas. So there's 2 games on Christmas this year. They are Ravens, Texans, and then Chiefs and someone else. Steelers, yeah. And they're putting it on Netflix. Is this not the most diabolical thing that the NFL has ever done? One, you're taking it off cable. So even if someone wanted to change the channel, they can't. They're going to just do it on Netflix. So it's not like you can be like, oh, let's go see what the NBA is doing today. If this game is going badly, you have to completely switch your stream or go to another app or do anything like that. And two, you're putting it on a streaming app, which not everyone has. And so it's just the most diabolical way to assert your dominance over other leagues.
Yeah, and college football too. Don't forget there's all kinds of playoff games going on during that time. I don't know, man. These guys, they find a way, and I think there's something to be said about taking advantage of another day on the schedule so that you can get some eyes on it. But, at some point, their arrogance is, I think it's going to hit you right in the face, right? And we can't say that they can't do it because people will watch. People will sign up for these streaming services. If anybody can do what they're about to attempt, it's the NFL because of how many fans that they have. But I go back to a story I may have told here before. Being in London 9 years ago when the NFL was over there, when the Cowboys were playing the Jags, and a pretty high up person in the NFL told me how the league was trying to get a team permanently into London, so it would elevate, not only the stature of the league globally, but also enhance the value of each franchise individually by just having a team in Europe. And part of the reason for that was from the TV markets, they wanted to have a game at 8 a.m. every Sunday, a game at noon every Sunday, and a game at 3:30 every Sunday. And this was a direct quote from the guy. The only thing we would be competing against at 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning in the United States is God. And I was like, man, at some point, man, God will not be mocked, but you do you, bro. But this is the kind of machine that we're talking about and the kind of moneymaker that we're talking about. And I'm not going to be shocked if they get a boatload of viewers on a Wednesday on Christmas Day. I mean, it's all setting up for, you would think, to fail, but I'm not going to watch the NBA on Christmas Day. I might watch the NFL, although I'm not going to work to go sign up for Netflix if I don't have it, because I'm not going to do that with any of these other ones. That's just me as a consumer. But I think most people have Netflix, right?
I mean, a lot of people do. A lot of people don't really have Netflix anymore because they got rid of it because they've raised prices and stuff like that. But when you look at like Peacock, Prime Video, Netflix, YouTube TV to get the Sunday ticket, like you would basically have to pay like $300, $250 to get all of the games that you want to get. Is it just becoming too cumbersome, Zach?
Maybe. Yeah, it could just be, I don't know. This is just me thinking off the top of my head here. What if, the NFL is just trying to create competition between all these streaming services where it's like, all right, we're going to sign up with one to do this, well on into the future for years and years and years. It's like, all right, we're going to give you all a little taste and see who comes out as the highest bidder at the end. So, at Netflix, you think of it, it's been a brand for a long time. So it's just they're aligning with some of those bigger names.
Netflix is starting to get it more into like the live, the live events. They did the whole John Mulaney thing last week for Netflix as a joke comedy festival. They did the roast, obviously. They're starting to do more live shows. This is a whole nother animal, though.
Sure.
They don't do commercials usually in the roast. Like, are you going to put commercials in these Christmas Day games? Like, that's a lot of ad revenue you might get or lose or whatever. Who are you getting to announce these games? It's like, it's a whole different animal.
The NFL has so many hidden games, though, on a Sunday, and you have, 4 or 5 games that start at noon, 4 or 5 games that are in the late game or whatever it turns out to be, that it makes sense that you would sell off some of these properties and then try to, capitalize on your own product. I don't have a problem with that, but if I'm not mistaken, and I've lived long enough to, maybe be able to remember or harken back, didn't we all just cut the cable because things were getting out of control and how much they all cost? Now it's like, if it's going to be however much for this streaming service and this much, we're right back to square one, and it all comes full circle.
Didn't you see the other day that Apple TV, Netflix, and one other streaming service were thinking of all coming together under one umbrella and Comcast, and it's like, oh, so we're back at cable.
Right.
It's
Well,
the
and
exact
like
same
Disney
thing.
Plus and HBO Max or
Yeah.
something are all getting together. So it's just, yeah.
Everything old is new again.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh-huh.
It's so retro, bro.
Hey, but you know, Amazon actually does the best job of broadcasting games.
I think
You
Amazon
can-
does a good job.
You can go over to the All 22 and watch. I mean, that's great. I love to be able to do that, and then you could rewatch it whenever you want. I just think they blow away what the networks are doing.
I think that there's a lot of innovation that's happening in broadcasting right now, which is really, really great. That you have the Manning cast, you have the Supercasts on ESPN and all that stuff. You have the All 22. They also do the AI or the Watson kind of thing where you can see how fast someone's running and how the ball's geometrics and all this stuff. And it's just like they do a lot of that stuff now on Apple TV.
Yeah.
I just
And
want to see
also-
football. I don't really care about all that
Right.
stuff. But
Also, with all these games available at one time, that's why I always go to Twin Peaks to watch games. That and the food.
Yes,
shameless plug.
that's right. That's why you don't get your food at Twin Peaks to go, bro. Right?
Those scenic
I
views.
don't even understand.
Yes.
Any comments from viewers or anything like that, Bob?
Z was asking, what will the Cowboys do? Let me see what he said here. What will the Cowboys do about their weak run defense record?
You were up at OTAs. Why don't you tell us a little bit about their new defensive tackle they drafted?
Yeah. Well,
he seemed pretty stout.
and we got to see him at the far end of the field. And of course, right now it's just orientation and anything. I mean, I think from this draft class, their big premium was on athleticism. Guys who may not look the part right away, but it's like, look, there's tremendous amount of upside. So they may not be the biggest guys on the block to just, plug things and stuff like that. But there's been some comparisons to Marshawn Nealon to DeMarcus Lawrence, and DeMarcus Lawrence can be a run wrecker when he wants to be, just getting in, knifing through the gaps. And he did that several times last year. So this is a guy in a similar vein. And Nealon, Maris Liufu, we'll see what he does. He's, kind of again, another Swiss Army knife. I'm really excited to see DeMarvion Overshown because this guy seems to have bulked up and just massive. So I can't wait to see what he does next, in training camp coming up. So, I mean, we'll see, it's like, and the other thing is like, how's Zimmer going to employ everybody? How is he going to line them up and use them? Because, of course, everybody's bagging on Mozzie Smith right now. Well, he's got 2 more years at least before it's like, okay, can you really say if he's a bust or a hit?
Well, plus he had guys in front of him last year.
Yeah.
Like-
You got Neville Gallimore and Jonathan Hankins, who are quality guys. So
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, now he's going to be one of the guys. So it's like, now here's where the rubber meets the road.
It's being thrust into the role, like sink or swim.
And
Go
and they're doing that with so many guys, across the roster, both on defense and offense.
And I love one thing that Mike Deal did in the comments. He called his shot already, 11-6 for the Cowboys.
11-6. I wasn't going to put predictions on us yet. We're going to do that in September.
come on.
Early September.
Get a little
Fine.
closer.
Yeah, I need to know who's making this roster first before.
Right? Who's starting?
I
on the
saw someone say the Cowboys are going to go 14-3, and I was like, they go 14-3. Like, I owe a lot of people apologies in the Cowboys organization because they would have far exceeded my expectations.
Yeah, that's a lot of wins.
That's a lot of wins.
Hey, but 11-6 would be a very good
11-6.
season.
Yeah,
I think
11
that's
That's respectable.
Yeah.
realistic. Anything else, Bob?
That's it.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it's going to be a fun year for the Cowboys and the Texans, and we will be here to talk about it.
112 days to kickoff.
Yep, 112 days to kickoff. I was going to say we'll be here
Well,
to talk
who's
about it twice a
counting?
week. We'll put a counter up on the screen now. All right, that's all we got for you on this edition of the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We will see you right back here on Monday, I think. Until then, everyone have a good weekend.